Alright, so throughout this repair, when you're getting ready to go back with everything, wherever we had a rubber O-ring, I highly recommend replacing. You know, because the EGR cooler's got a rubber O-ring on the end of it that goes into that little metal pipe that has that bleeder screw. And we also got an O-ring on the pipe that goes into the EGR cooler. Then we also got an O-ring where the pipe goes over the EGR cooler. It's one of those pipes that uses one of those 4 mounting fastener bolts. There's an O-ring there, so I'd highly recommend replacing all 3 of those. That way you're not doing the job more than once. So definitely take it into consideration. I may not have mentioned as we were going, but definitely those 3 O-rings, these were green in color, they could be just about any color. Just make sure you get the right O-rings. And I lube them up with a little grease so everything slides together well. Alright, so what we do, here's our bleeder screw that I mentioned earlier. This is on that pipe that we pulled loose from the EGR cooler earlier. This is the highest point in the coolant system, so we need to go ahead and break that loose. It's a 1/4 inch Allen head, so I want to go ahead and back it all the way out. It's got some thread sealing already on it. You can always add some more if you like. So what we'll do is we'll start adding at the filler neck. You'll start seeing some antifreeze eventually come out. Now you want to keep a steady flow. You want to add some, wait till it bubbles out, add more till you get a nice little happy level, because that initial rush of coolant coming out isn't what you need. There, you got flow now. You need to slow it down a bit until you get it to where it stays consistent. Then you can go ahead and put the Allen head back in its place and just finish topping off the radiator, and then make sure your coolant bottle's topped off. That way you got all the air out of it. You keep adding, you just keep watching. Start seeing a little more. There you go. At that point we got a really good flow coming out. So I think at this point what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cap it off. And all I got to do now is top off the radiator. Put the cap back on. So there you go, we got all the air out the coolant system like we wanted. Make sure you tighten it all the way down. Now, there you have it. Now our crankcase filter is held on by a total of 8 fasteners all the way around the perimeter. Now they're all 8mm. They're all the same except for the back corner closest to the passenger side firewall. That is an 8mm studded bolt. There's a wiring harness that goes and gets wrapped around the back side and slides over that stud. So make sure you pull the harness up first and then get that one off. Now you got your oil filler cap as well that needs to come off. So we go ahead and we take all of them loose. All the fasteners are easy to get to. The one that's a stud back here, what we can use is an 8mm wrench. We'll back it off until it's able to be loosened up by hand the rest of the way. And the side one back here, we just use a nice little swivel and we can get to it as well. Now we got all the fasteners off. Now you do have a rubber hose that comes over to the crankcase filter assembly, but I leave it in place. I don't need to take it all the way up. Why? I'm just going to lift up on the cover, sit it to the side, grab my crankcase filter, which is this whole black assembly right here, that orange O-ring on there, pick it up. I'm going to sit it to the side. Go ahead and wipe everything off real nice and clean. Make sure the gasket looks good. If you have any kind of questions with it, go ahead and replace that gasket. Otherwise, this one seems to be great and intact. It's not flattened, still raised. I'm going to grab my new one, sit it down in there, firmly press it down to make sure it's fully seated. Go ahead and start putting the cover back on. Just make sure you don't leave the wiring harness up under the back side. Now all I got to do is put my 8mm bolts all the way around and make sure I put the stud in the back. Don't forget the oil filler cap. And here's a better view of the EGR valve. This is the crossover tube that goes from the EGR cooler up to the EGR valve. And you got your electrical portion, the solenoid and the connector. Now these come as an assembly, the valve and the solenoid. Now the solenoid has one connector on the side. It's a single stage, squeeze in, pull back. And you've got one right here, don't worry about this. This is just a temp sensor. We've got one V-band clamp that pipe attaches to the EGR valve with, and that's held in place with an 11mm nut on a stud. We'll start loosening up that clamp. And then we've got 4 10mm around the perimeter right here. And that's all that technically holds it on. So let's go ahead and start getting some of that off. your bolts here. Alright, so the 10's out of the way. Now we'll move on to that 11 on that band clamp. Now you don't have to take the nut all the way off on the band clamp. You just get it loosened up enough where what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze on it and let the backside come out. If you need to back off some more, so be it. Sometimes I think I got enough, other times I don't. So I don't take it all the way off myself. Let's see if we got enough now. We can squeeze. Here we go. And we'll just spread it apart a bit, take it off to the side. Now with the 10's off right now, what we're going to do is just with the palm of your hand, you can just give it a gentle tap, break it loose, and there you go. So here's our Egr valve. This is where the 4 10mm went around the perimeter. You've got your band clamp and you got your connector. It'll come as an assembly like that. When you go to reinstall it, just make sure you clean up the surface here where the gaskets were. I'd blow it out with some air as well. And you've also got one gasket on the tube. There you go. Make sure you replace that as well. Make sure you clean the surface on that as well. And then once you go back, just tighten everything down nice and snug. And installation is just opposite of removal.